I remember maybe 1970 when I was 15. My parents were going shopping in Monroeville and traffic was all backed up. It just was stop and go, nothing was moving. But eventually we heard a siren. And it's, wow. This orange and white, beautiful ambulance passed us by. And boy, that white light caught your eye and it lit up the ambulance and the cars, and I was just awestruck. And what I didn't know until years later is that that was one of the first ambulance calls that Wilkins Churchill Rescue 1 responded to.
I was probably about 9 years old. My dad had tickets to the Pitt football games. And so my dad had a friend that was an undertaker, okay? The funeral home was about 10 blocks from the stadium. The funeral director also provided ambulance service. So they had a 1964 Cadillac ambulance. All of the kids would jump into the ambulance and we would ride up to Pitt Stadium in the ambulance. And that was my first ride in it.
We met in middle school. I was in 8th grade. He was in 6th grade. They had afternoon clubs that met at the end of the school day. He and I ended up in Mr. Kalin's model building class.
He'd say, "Don't talk. No talking." And I believe it was on a Friday night. Andy took me over to Wilkins Churchill Rescue 1 and then started to work together.
We pulled in, we jumped out, we looked like Superman. We had our splints and our bandages, and we went to work, and we got this guy all packaged up and splinted and put him on the stretcher, and we're on the way to the hospital.
It was working together as a team to produce a result that, made a difference in someone's life. I felt, complete.
Sometime around 20 years ago, maybe in the early 2000s, Rick learned of an ambulance that was for sale in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. And it was a 1973 Cadillac. It was a Superior. And Rick and I had worked together initially in a 1972 Superior Cadillac. So it was really close to what we were used to working in. And they are what are called limousine-based chassis.
So these are regular cars, like a Packard.
Manufacturers stretched the frames and then did custom coach work to make them into an ambulance or a hearse.
And that went from 1920s to the late 70s, for ambulances anyway.
So there won't be any more made. And those that are out there, it's certainly not easy to get parts. And they are just absolutely gorgeous vehicles with so much craftsmanship in them.
We were going to meet with this funeral director that owned the ambulance. His name was Bill Head. Bill was a great guy and a very well-established funeral director in Alpharetta, Georgia. After calling, agreed to go down and look at it and see it. And so Andy came along for the ride.
I picked Rick up at his house because we had to leave a car at the airport because we'd be coming back driving this ambulance. So we went to the Pittsburgh airport. Didn't you want me to bring tools? But I'm trying to think, that was like a year after 9/11. I wouldn't think they'd let you bring tools onto a plane.
No, I
Did
don't.
you take tools?
No, we didn't take tools.
We flew to Atlanta, and he greeted us and took us out to the garage to see the ambulance.
That was nice, and the price was right.
And he said, would you guys like to take it for a ride to test it out? We take it out on these back roads, and I looked at the ammeter, and it wasn't coming back when we blew the siren. We mentioned to the owner about this electrical problem, and he was kind of a good old Southern boy. He said, well, now, fellas, he said, I think we can take care of that. I got a friend here who has an electrical repair shop.
So we went to the generator shop and we replaced the generator.
He said, well, how far are you taking this? We said, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He said, oof, wow. He said, well, to the greatest extent possible, he said, I'd keep it running because it may be difficult to start again. So we thought, wow, here we are on a however many hour trip that is from Atlanta to Pittsburgh with a car that has a failing alternator. couple days before our trip, we were together with my cousin, Steve. And I told him about this trip, and he said, so you're going to come all the way up 95 from Georgia? And I said, yeah. And he said, would you do me a favor? He said, stop in South Carolina and get me some fireworks. He said, any exit of the interstate on 95, there will be fireworks stores because fireworks are legal in South Carolina.
So we stopped at one of those south of the border fireworks joints, and Andy had a lot of money to spend on these things.
I don't know how much fireworks are supposed to cost, but the shopping cart was overflowing when I hit the $200 mark. Well, this ambulance didn't have a stretcher in it. The stretcher area was a perfect place to put all these fireworks. We just kept pushing fireworks in, another box, another box, another box.
Like any Looney Tunes cartoon, like the coyotes packing explosives into something to blow up Bugs Bunny, or that's how that car. I mean, it had like fireworks popping out of everywhere.
So we took off, and I remember we stopped at a gas station, and I remember there was a lot of interest. All the people at the gas station were looking at the ambulance, and hey, what is that? And,
Ghostbusters.
yeah, that's the typical reaction. We came all the way up through South Carolina and North Carolina, and then we cut across in West Virginia, and by now it's definitely night. It's pitch black. It was maybe
4 in the morning.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that late yet. It was like maybe 1 o'clock.
No, was it?
1:30. But
I swear.
Rick's driving, and he looks at me, he says, something doesn't sound right.
Realized that wasn't able to get out of second gear. And I thought, we're going to have a problem with the transmission. We're going to break down. We're going to be stuck out here.
So Rick slowed down to maybe about 30 miles an hour. And that seemed like a great idea until a tractor trailer came up behind us going about 80. We turned the lights on. Figured that would be a good warning that for this tractor trailer that it'd see something was going on. And we knew that Buckhannon, West Virginia, was up ahead, and Rick had gone to college at West Virginia Wesleyan. So he knew that was a good sized town and there were car repair places and so forth. Well, the first thing we come to, you can see it from the exit, is a Hampton Inn. There's not a parking place to be had. So we park in the front and we go in and we said, do you have any rooms? It was like Joseph and Mary looking for the inn on Christmas Eve.
Exactly. They were having.
She said it was parents' weekend.
Or homecoming, I think.
Okay. She said we've been sold out for weeks. So she took pity on us and she said, well, let me get you some pillows and blankets and you can sleep right here in the lobby on the couches. So we did. I don't know that we got a lot of sleep.
No. So the next morning we woke up in the lobby. They invited us to have their continental breakfast.
And Rick said, no, we can't do that. You've been more than kind to put us up for the night. But would you have a Yellow Pages to find a transmission repair place? We found one.
We did.
And she gave us directions on how to get to where this place was. We go down the road. Here's this little transmission shop, a little concrete block building. There's nobody there yet. It was about 7:30. We go over and we look at the door, and there's a sign that says hours.
Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Saturday sometimes, Sunday never. That was a sign on the door. So we were hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that it was one of those Saturdays.
A conversion van pulls in. He gets out of the van. He looks like that guy with the real bushy hair in the old Doritos commercials. And he kind of looks us up and down, shrugs his shoulders, turns, goes over, unlocks the door, and walks in. We pull into the driveway, and he said it's one of two things. He said the one's pretty easy to fix, the other one's not easy to fix.
And one of them was the access to the transmission was under the carpet in the front. It was like a nylon.
Like a gear. You could see the teeth were pretty chewed up on it. He said that's the problem. The good news is that's the easier of the two things to fix. He said the bad news is, he said, I don't know where I can get one on a Saturday. And then he looks at his watch and he says, usually the first thing I do when I get here in the morning is I go over to Burger King and get breakfast. I said, hey, I can go over to Burger King and get breakfast. I said, I can't fix a transmission. He gives me the keys to his truck. So I drive over to Burger King and I get the order for the three of us. So we're done with breakfast and he says, all right, he says, let me see if I can get a hold of one of those gears. I got a whole yard of used transmissions in the back here. He said, let me go out, I gotta have a couple of those transmissions. So he comes in and he says, I got one. He said, it's not perfect, he said, but it'll get you home. We got this thing put in, got the access panel back, got the carpeting back, and Rick says to him, well, what do we owe you? And he says, how about $25, $30? And we looked at him and said, $25? Like, you've been working on this thing for over 3 hours. And he said, well, you bought breakfast.
I gave a guy $100.
He said, well, good luck to you. And we back out. We take off down the road and get back on 79. We were feeling pretty cocky by then because felt like we had mastered every problem that life could throw at us.
Came back to Pittsburgh, but we had to get back through the airport because Andy drove us to the airport. He needed to get his car.
Now you have to remember, this is right on the coattails of 9/11. Security's ramped up a couple notches, and they had Jersey barriers, and they had it all down to one lane. Like they would funnel traffic through one car at a time. And there was a county police officer there. He was checking everybody coming through. And suddenly I looked at Rick and I said, Rick, the entire back of this ambulance is full of fireworks. We are driving a car bomb. What are we going to do? Like, we couldn't back up. There were cars behind us. It was one lane. It was Jersey barriers on both sides. We had no place to go but forward. We're thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to end up in jail. We'll be in jail until our kids are old. So we pulled up, and Rick put the window down, and the guy looks at us, looks at the car. He says, where'd you get this? Down in Georgia. He said, what are you going to do with it? Put it in parades and stuff? The guy says, cool, and waves us through. So what could have been a disaster turned out to be okay, and went to the parking lot and got in my car and drove home.
Some men never learned to wait. Some men waiting all their lives.
I know, but this is great.
It's neat to revisit all the experiences we had, and it makes me realize how much those shared experiences are a foundation of our friendship. And we've known each other since middle school, but still our shared interest in EMS and vintage ambulances has certainly been heightened by that trip.
The people in West Virginia that helped us, the guy that, I mean, if you're kind to people and you're nice and, you know, like that, people are going to take care of you.
It just, people wanted to see what it was all about. I remember every time we stopped to get gas or something, it almost drew a crowd. So yeah, even a 30-year-old antique car would attract some attention, but a 30-year-old ambulance for something that they didn't even make anymore, that was a headliner.
But yeah, that's I don't know. We've had many adventures, interesting times.
Oh, some days I spend with you. Spend with you. Conflate romance and heaven. Don't mean to, but I do. Don't know what we'll do up there. I'll be nervous till I do, and we'll laugh. Oh, we will